Hello folks, welcome to Saturday, October the 10th. And things are definitely heating up as we are approaching the important election. I mean, the United States is the superpower for the planet. That's the Empire USA, and what's going on there is extremely important, but not to deflect our attention away from what's going on in Australia, that being a test country, especially the state of Victoria, a state that is being seriously communized and Jewed over. Quite horrible what's going on there. But before I proceed, I just want to thank you who have subscribed to my BitChute channel, and I also suggest you can find me in Libry, L-B-R-Y in capitals. All my videos pretty much are in there and untampered with, so you can see episode 4 of my 2 bits worth, which was not uploaded into BitChute or YouTube. And another episode, a trip to Calgary, was truncated. They reduced the length of the video to just under 9 minutes, and you can find the entire episode, the full hour plus, in Libry and also in Odyssey. That's another place. So thank you very much for those of you subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, it might not be a bad idea if you appreciate my presentations, my approach to the news and politics, religion and so forth, the way I tend to digress and go down rabbit holes. And so today I want to express a concern and then talk around that. My concern is that as I've gotten older and as more and more information is coming in from all kinds of directions, at times it becomes ever more difficult to come to some overstanding of what really is the true story of what is on this planet and in the universe and so forth. A lot of confusing information and information that is challenging other information, and so given now the revelations about fake news, we can't even trust the news services any longer. With Photoshop, photographs have been completely tampered with. That all began quite heavily with Stalin and the Jews of the Bolshevik nightmare. They tampered with lots of photographs to rewrite history, and that is one of their modus operandi. By rewriting history and controlling history, the entity is teaching us a narrative that isn't true, and has been so doing for quite a long time, pretty much ever since the entity took control of the education of the Goyim's children. And as you are likely aware, if not, the entity educates this spawn in a completely different school program. It's Talmud Torah schools, and they are given a far better education than what the Goyim children receive in the public fool system schools, which are day prisons for children. They come out at the other end after 12 or more years of suffering under the machinations of what oftentimes are martinets, people with chips on their shoulders, people wishing they were something else, but oh well, they had to become a teacher. Well, I kind of went there myself. I spent 20 years as a high school fine arts teacher, but as a fine arts teacher I created my own curricula, and for the most part I had a pretty good time of it. But now in retrospect I would never do that over again. That was not something I woke up to one morning to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be a public school teacher. No, it was an economic necessity at a time when I took on some responsibilities that necessitated a regular income, which as a visual artist in his early 20s, given the kind of support I wasn't receiving, that wasn't really an option on the table. If I'd have been by myself, I certainly could have toughed that out. And if I'd have spent all those years producing artwork, that would have been awesome. But I did anyway. I did produce quite a lot of work while I was teaching. I was one of those teachers that walked the walk as well as talked the talk. So I wrote plays. When I was a drama teacher, I won an award with a play. It was produced. Yeah, I've been writing for quite a long time actually, and I was painting a lot also when I was teaching art classes, visual arts, and so. But anyway, that's another story. So the problem is, what can we believe anymore? And that's becoming an increasing problem for a lot of people, and that's all by design, because the entity wants everybody confused. And just like when they are afraid about where their next meal is coming from, keeping people confused and fearful at the same time, that is a great way to control people. And indeed, a lot of people are being controlled and are willingly accepting being controlled. They're walking around with diapers and coffee filters over their faces. It's absolutely insane. And I really have to work at keeping my mouth shut, because people generally don't like it too much when you look them straight in the eyeballs and they're wearing one of those silly things on their face. You say to them, did you go to high school? Did you study chemistry? Did you study biology at all? What do you know about physics? Have you ever tried to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence? Well, that's just as effective as wearing that silly thing on your face. Indeed, you're going to make yourself sick. But sometimes people take real exception to that. One guy was going to get in a conversation with me. I said, I don't talk to morons, and walked away, and he babbled something behind my back. I think it wasn't very complimentary, whatever it was. So anyway, folks, don't buy into this mask wearing program. It's all about having you submit and obey to ridiculous dictates coming from these so-called authority figures. Indeed, they are criminals and they're minions of the international parasite. And their day is coming very, very quickly, because, as you know, likely, and if you do indeed share my videos, you'll help wake up a lot of more people about what's going on and who's responsible. And in an upcoming video, I am going to show you some knots that are going to be very, very useful for you to know. And so that's an episode you can look forward to, because you are going to have to learn to make some specific kinds of knots. Because if we don't start using these specific knots on a certain entity, they are going to take over completely, and we white people will be in the dustbin of history. And I don't think that's such a great idea, because without white people on this planet will very quickly de-evolve into some kind of a fourth and fifth world cesspit. I guarantee it. Regardless of what people will tell you, high level technologies that have been achieved here and there, whatever. But when you actually look into the matter, you'll find that all of it pretty well has been stolen from white people. White people developed those technologies, and then these other people modified them and did some perfection work on them, of course. I mean, certainly Toyota is a fine car, but don't forget who invented the automobile. It wasn't Orientals. So the question is, given that Photoshop is so well developed, people can manufacture photographs out of crap and come up with something that looks spectacular. all because of knowing how to manipulate Photoshop and other software that will help enhance and make better photos from the ones that were initially shot. However, it is my contention as a photographer, and I have been handling cameras since I was 8 years old. That's when my dad gave me my first camera. I still have it, actually. And that little camera was the first of many cameras that I've had over the years, and I've done professional work as well. And I like the idea of composing the photograph in the camera and then releasing the shutter and making the photo. All of this click, 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 and all these power drives and all of it, you know, really it isn't so much an art form anymore. I mean, it should all be done there on location. That should be the photograph, not something that is enhanced and manipulated in a studio. That to me that isn't photography. That's painting. That's another type of art form. But yeah. Although I have been known to lighten up some dark photos, you know, just enhancing the value a little bit, and maybe the tone. But other than that, I don't really manipulate photos all that much. Yes, okay, you've maybe caught me cropping images in these videos when I put the camera on the dash of the car. And then I have to crop out the dash. That's because I'm by myself, and they put the camera on the dash, and it can't go any closer to the window. It's right up against the window, and so I crop out that dash because all the time. Anyway. So the problem is that we are looking, you know, out there in the internet, and we have Wikipedia, and we have, you know, various other encyclopedias in there. But golly, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's being played with, and history is being, like I said, rewritten. It's being tampered with. So be careful. That's why it's so important. Find old dictionaries, for example, if you can, and you know, don't completely rely on the internet for definitions, because they play with the definitions also. And old dictionaries and old encyclopedias, that's where information still is. That doesn't really exist so much anymore. By, again, design, because of course the entity doesn't really want you to know what is the true story. And in order to talk a little bit about what is the true story, the first thing that I want to say, and that is about one of the only things I know for sure, is that we live in an eternal reality. There is no beginning, there is no end. This reality that we are in, and in this particular case here, we are in a three-dimensional reality. Some of us probably are maybe going into another dimension from time to time, perhaps fourth, maybe fifth, whatever. You know, metaphysics certainly plays a big role in all of this, and certain enhancements, you know, little help from my friends, so to speak. People do, in fact, claim that they have experienced some other realities, some other dimensions, and in fact, there seems to be some evidence that it is quite possible that there are parallel universes, indeed, complete total reality, such as what you are experiencing here, me, and you know, the background and so forth. You know, we perceive that as our reality, but it's possible that something similar to this exists in a different wavelength. We do know that there is such a thing as a electromagnetic spectrum from, say, 0 to 100, visible light, is only bandwidths 42 to 45, and then you have ultraviolet and infrared. But beyond that, we can't really see except with special instruments, and it's quite conceivable that there could very likely be sentient beings existing in a form, if you will, but in different frequencies that we cannot see. Some do in fact see. It's like my contention that likely angels are such beings. They're sentient beings. Because sentience, consciousness, that's a spiritual reality. That is, it's nothing to do with your brain. That's simply the receiver-transmitter unit. And unfortunately, due to all these machinations by the entity, fluoridation being a very significant part of that, our pineal glands have by and large been calcified, and subsequently the reception is and transmission is somewhat compromised, indeed for a lot of people completely compromised. Some people do have smidgens of connection into the cosmic mind via their pineal gland, that being the master antenna, if you will, and they pick up very vivid pieces of life transcripts from somebody who has lived, since all the life transcripts of every sentient human, every sentient being that has lived here, that's all on record in the cosmic mind, or they also call it the Akashic records. But the cosmic mind, we connect with that. That's like the planet's hard drive, and we connect with that via the pineal gland, and since it is deliberately been calcified, we don't really see too clearly into the record, and therefore we have such a limited knowledge and overstanding of our history and the reality we live in. So a lot of us, have faith. We have faith in the teachings of supposed experts, people with university degrees or long years of experience in particular fields, that sort of thing. But now we are at a point where we are distrusting ever more of so-called experts, because so many of them have been proven to be liars, especially those so-called august personages posing as our politicians. The sad thing is that most of them are criminals, and whenever their lips are moving, they're lying, mostly. They are by and large narcissists, self-serving narcissists, whose primary concern is to remain elected and draw that fat salary and all that adulation and special treatment, because the sheeple think that just because you were elected, or that this individual was elected to some government position, that they are somehow better and brighter and deserving of all this special VIP treatment, free meals, first class passage on luxury airplanes and that sort of thing. But really, they are minions of the entity that is seeking to take over the world, and indeed is behind now has been for some time, the development of gulags, which they will call internment camps or quarantine camps, and use COVID-19, or what may be coming is COVID-20, and so on, which may go on ad infinitum if we do not stop them. But if we do not stop them, then many people, such as myself and others, will be likely some of the first candidates for these internment camps, because as was recently revealed, I think it is by Jeff Berwick, I think, had this up, or it could be Max Egan, but one of those two had up a video that showed a speech, or rather a question period in the Legislative Assembly in Ontario, where it was specifically asked of the government, are you building internment camps? And it came out in that little video that it's open-ended who goes there. And so yeah, that's already coming out. But I've known about that for some time. Some of us are aware that there are already several that have been built here in Alberta. 3, I think, somebody mentioned, that are already available for dissidents. Just like the good old days of Stalin and earlier days, Lenin and Trotsky, those murderous Chekists. If you look at little Justin Trudeau, he looks a lot like one of those little slimy Jew boy Chekist murderous cockroaches. He is really a very dangerous enemy of Canada and needs to be treated as a traitor. Indeed, it's actually interesting that here in Alberta there was a t-shirt printed that showed a noose hanging from a tree and it said, "Come west, Trudeau." People here pretty well had it, as that is becoming increasingly the case worldwide. People have had it. And indeed, I've issued City Council essentially some information regarding what is coming their way if they don't change what they've been doing. And certainly fluoridation is a significant part of that, because fluoridation is what is causing people to have these very significant health problems, and it is in fact a weapons-grade neurotoxin. So the fact that that's been put in the drinking water makes all city councils responsible for fluoridating their drinking water, makes them war criminals, and subsequently they all need to be incarcerated and then stand trial. Hopefully, of course, you do that in a way that involves the common law and don't rely on the court system as it stands, which is corrupt, and mostly the people slithering about in these courts paying obeisance to the City of London, i.e. the Crown. These people are mostly members of the international parasite. They're tentacles of the parasite, and they are there to essentially suck as much money as they can out of their victims, the people they're representing or prosecuting. The judge gets 30%. I've told you that before. 30% automatically into his or her pension fund. And lawyers are paid regardless of whether they win or lose. It's such a scam. That whole industry needs to be completely shaken down, and we need to return to common law and honesty and fairness and justice. Presently, under Noahide law and Admiralty law, there isn't anything like that at all. Most people are fleeced and suffer. So what do we need? What do we need? Yeah, we need a lot of things. What do we know for sure? Well, as I said, what I know for sure is that there is no beginning, there is no end, and that there is a first uncaused cause, and that is whom we call God, and the uncaused cause is the source of everything. And so given that idea, the entity whom we call God is personal, because personality is a reality. We all agree that you and I are unique persons. Although the word person is a problem, it's the word that is used for us in legal situations. But when you actually think of the word person, that means per the Son, as if you are a facsimile, when in fact you are the Son. And that is something I also know for sure. So that means that given the concept of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit, which is totally different from the Islamic take, which there's only Allah, and he has no son, so there is no personal relationship between the so-called creator and the rest of the beings, i.e. the individual Muslims. Allah is some strange entity that's not even present in paradise, whereas in the Christian teachings, indeed in the teachings of the Urantia book, which is where I direct you actually for a more comprehensive overstanding of what's what, and albeit the Urantia book doesn't claim to be perfect, it's just simply an awesome stepping stone on the way to further awareness and knowledge and overstanding. The Urantia book talks about the Father being, of course, the source of everything, and subsequently being personal, and subsequently having many sons, the Paradise Creator sons, who are the ones that organize what's necessary to make individual universes. For example, the Paradise Michaels. The word Michael actually means he who is like unto God. So these are the direct representatives of the Father, and there are many levels of sonship as we go down the levels, say, to the kind of sonship that is exhibited here on earth. We normal-minded sentient beings, we are in fact children of God the Father, who is at the center of all reality. And as I said, he is personal. Now all the feminists say, oh, he's a he, no, he's a she. Actually, the dichotomy of male and female is as follows. The Father is at the center, and your mother is the planet you're born on. In this particular case, she's known as Gaia. Or Urantia, according to the Urantia book, that is the name of this planet. And she, like a mother, nurtures us. Everything that we require to live comes from our mother, who is the earth. And so that's how you get that father-mother, male-female dichotomy, and we're in the middle. And there are only two sexes in the biological realm. There's only males and females, and then there's the hermaphrodite, but that's another issue. But they have a male and a female part, but there's all these ideas of multiple sexual orientations. That's really nonsense. There's male and female. And then the rest is, in the case of the LBQT movement, the rest is all mental illness. And that mental illness is all being legitimized by the sodomites who have a very powerful voice. They're strong. They're strong in government. They've got that rainbow flag flying all over the place. And if you dare suggest there's something wrong with sodomy, you could have some serious problems, and that is, in some circles, considered almost like a hate crime. And you're not entitled to your free speech anymore and your free thinking, only if it is on the same level and supporting the same agenda. So if you are supporting mental illness, then you're awesome. You're a Democrat. You're a liberal. You are one of the group. But if you challenge that, even me suggesting there's only two sexes, if I was doing that, say, as a university professor at a university, I likely could be disrobed. Yeah, have all my certificates taken away. Oh yeah, it's really horrible what's going on. Actually, free speech is definitely under attack. No question. Now, as you've probably noticed, Christianity is under serious attack, and rightly so. Christianity is not the religion of Jesus of Nazareth. And so what's happening though is that people, just like they can't make the differentiation between tentacles of the entity, they are white-skinned and they kind of look sort of like white people. Some of them do. Some of them look like Neanderthals, like Jeffrey Epstein, for example. That's a quintessential Neanderthal Jew. But lots of them look like us, and many can't differentiate between me, say, and a descendant of the Khazarians, also being white-skinned. But they're different. They're definitely a different manifestation of what appears to be human. You know, to be human is essentially it's a paradigm. Human is a form that has a certain skeletal structure and musculature and a head with two eyeballs, and you know, if you look at me and you look at yourself in the mirror, unless you're a draconian and you have a moment where you're shape-shifting and suddenly you're looking at your own slit eyes, and your reptile tongues comes out. But for the most part, those of you watching these videos, you know, this is the paradigm that we call human being. Some of us have black skin, some of us have yellow skin, there's still some blue skinned people, the indigo people of northeastern Africa, red skinned people, we still have those, but the orange, the green, the violet, they're all gone. And white people are amalgamation. We're hybrids of a number of those different colored races. But that goes back a long, long time ago, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago. Humanity, human beings, human mind has been on the planet for 1 million years. So, you know, there's a lot of civilizations have come and gone in those 1 million years. And, you know, many of them that have preceded us, they're dust. You know, the blood of the beings are the rubies that you wear on your fingers, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a very interesting history that this planet has already gone through, of which most people are not even very slightly aware what the real true story is. And again, that's one of the issues I have with the education programs that people have been put through. Deliberately, what history they are taught or what is presented to them is made to be so boring that by the time they get out of high school, most children who become adults have no interest really anymore in pursuing you know, a history study of any kind. And same with literature. Readership is not all that great. Well, other than people reading things on their communication wafers, largely that's where most people are now getting their information and so forth. And as I said right near the beginning, a lot of that information has been tampered with, and since people don't really have a very good foundation regarding education and their knowledge of the past and of science and philosophy, they don't have a very good basis on which to make decisions as to whether what's being presented is true or not. And subsequently a lot of falsehood is being perpetrated, and that supports the agenda of the international parasite, and continues to maintain their holy hoax, for example. Lots of people still talk about those terrible Nazis and, you know, how they murdered 6 million Jews, and most people don't question any of that. They just take it for granted that that is the true story. You know, when you suggest to them that a good part of Anne Frank's diary was written in ballpoint pen, which wasn't invented until 1947 and wasn't in any kind of general circulation until well into the 1950s. You know, I grew up in school dipping a pen into a pot of ink, for example. That would be like 1957. And for Anne Frank to have gotten hold of a ballpoint pen to write her diary, it's absolute nonsense. And good part of the foundation of the whole Holocaust story is founded on that diary. So that's a very significant piece of the story, is that phony diary. But anyway, Christianity is under attack, and again, there is a good reason that it should be under attack, because it isn't the religion of Jesus of Nazareth at all. It is in fact the religion of a Jew, Saul of Tarsus, who claimed to be an apostle, but he never even met Jesus personally. Subsequently could never have been an apostle, so that whole story was a lie right from the get-go. And then the light he saw was another great way to essentially create a swindle that can enslave the minds of Western people and turn them into very obedient sheep. That is the imagery that is promulgated in Christianity, the idea of Jesus being the shepherd and the flock being all these white little cute little sheep, and they refer to him as the lamb and so on. Well, it's all nonsense. I know Jesus very well, and you can learn to know him really well also by reading the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth in the Urantia book. And you can find that all online. Just punch in Urantia book. I'll put the name below so you can see how to spell it. And just read that. It's the largest part of the book, actually. It's a Urantia book's actually 4 books in one binding. And again, as I said, it doesn't claim to be the absolute truth. It's just the best we have at this time. It was published in 1955, and there are no human beings connected with the book. It is a revelation, and it is quite an interesting enigma when you look into it. But guaranteed, of all the books on my shelves, if they come to take me away, hee hee ho ho ha ha, to the funny farm, and they say, Gurchin, you can take a book, I would take the Urantia book. And I read that back in my early 20s, and it became a very significant influence on my life, and I've not forgotten much of it, really. It's pretty clear, and it is so beautifully written. But I do caution you, if you haven't done a lot of reading, it might not be a bad idea. Keep a dictionary close to hand, because the Urantia book is written in the most up-to-date English, American English there is, and some of the sentences they would take a bit of deciphering if you're not used to that. But not those books, like the history of this planet, for example, and the life and teachings of Jesus. That all is pretty easy to read. But some of the metaphysical stuff, particularly in the first book, that might be a bit of a challenge. But that's good, though, because the more you challenge your mind, the more you exercise your brain. And that is one of the ways that you keep all of that healthy and strong, which as you get older can become a problem, especially if you drink the tap water in a city where the water has been tampered with, and the scrapings of the chimneys of fertilizer plants are added to help protect your teeth, but actually provides a good living for your local dentists. So the criticism of Christianity is the idea that it actually comes largely out of the teachings, the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus supposedly tells the people that meek people will inherit the earth and so forth, and people have totally misinterpreted what is meant there. Jesus was a warrior, and he was no wimp. And he did not advocate sheepish behavior, but the kind of behavior that is best is stand back and assess the situation, and not fall victim to fear. because we really don't have anything to fear, and it's when we become fearful that we sometimes do things that afterwards we regret, or may in fact result in circumstances that could be tumultuous for not just oneself but for many others as well. And meekness, it's not really kind of hanging your head and exposing your neck, that sort of thing. No, that's not what that is. Meekness is just, you know, a natural, gentle nature, but not giving up one's backbone or cojones. When necessary, one needs to be able to fight back, and we are now in a situation where we must fight back, because it is either they, them, or us. And they have their Negro and Muslim attack dogs on their side, totally deranged and completely misinformed about us. I mean, the Negro, for example, they're always waving the slavery flag, but they totally don't know or refuse to acknowledge the fact that it was white people who abolished slavery, and that slavery was a trade carried on by Muslims, Negroes, and Jews. It had nothing to do with my ancestors, and you know, most of you watching these videos, likely you're white people, my guess, and not your ancestors either. And, truth be told, one of the very first people to own slaves to work his land was a Negro. Because slavery is a typical practice in Negro land, even today. That's and same with Muslim countries, Sudan and so on. Slavery that's openly practiced there. Yeah. So, something that you all need to do is to realize that the Jesus that the Christians present, by and large, is not really correct, and the religion, it has problems, but it is still the most highly evolved religion on the planet. It is monotheistic. It believes that our Creator is a Father with whom we can have a personal relationship. Now, if we take a look at what Jesus actually taught, was for you to contemplate God in your own manner, under your own fruit tree. In other words, it's a private conversation between you and your Creator, your Father in heaven. And that relationship is every bit as unique and original as the relationship that you have with your human father, compared to the relationship, say, if you have a sister or a brother, or brothers or sisters, the relationship that they have with your human father. It's all unique and different. And it is true, some parents do have a favorite or favorites, and some families do have a bad apple that both parents are wondering, how in the heck did that actually come out of us? And so, you know, that is a fact. You cannot choose your siblings. You can't choose your family. You're born there. But you can choose your friends. And so my advice is choose your friends wisely. Choose people that you can look up to and with whom you can laugh. It's very important. And in my case, I would really like somebody that knows how to play cribbage and how to play Go. Go is my favorite board game of all. And that is such an amazing game. It's infinitely fascinating. I'm not that good a chess player, but I can't say as I'm, well, to be a really good Go player, yeah, you've got to play a lot of games to be good at it. But you know, it's a good challenge, and I certainly recommend that. If you haven't ever played Go, you might want to look into that. It would be a great way for a man and wife to spend an evening, instead of watching the boob tube, Jewy vision. You can turn that sucker off and seriously build your mind playing Go. There's lots of books on it. There's a wonderful film about a Go master who was pitted against a computer. that was programmed to play Go, and that is a very interesting video, and I'll see if I can locate the link for it, and then I'll put it down in the comments section there. Oh, as I was talking earlier, mentioning the different racial colors, colors of the races. At one time, humanity was divided according to the colors of the rainbow. And for those of you who are knowledgeable about the Hindu teachings, whenever you see depictions of Krishna, you see him in blue skin. And so he is a god figure that goes back a long time in the mythology of the Hindus, and you have to realize also that some of the very oldest books on the planet are extant in India, and so there is a reference there to different colors as according to the rainbow. But I was talking about how the human frame, our skeleton, is one of the things that we say is, okay, we see that skeleton and it looks like a human skeleton. Yeah, in my case, that skeleton would be about 6 feet, a little bit less than 6 feet tall. Now, a skeleton that looks like my skeleton, but 38 feet long, has been revealed, and it is my contention that there were beings that looked like us, but that were even taller than 38 feet. Indeed, there is a reference in the book of Numbers, I believe it's chapter 13, probably verse 33, 34, sort of in there, where it says that we must have seemed as grasshoppers to these beings. So, that indicates that the giants that some humans interacted with, or our sized humans interacted with, were of a substantial stature. And certainly if we appeared as grasshoppers, then those beings would have been even taller than 38 feet. We're talking here maybe 70, 80 feet, 100 feet tall humanoids. And as some of you likely know, and this information is becoming more known, is that there were trees here that were kilometers tall, 6, 7, 10 kilometers into the sky, and the remnants of those trees that we call buttes and mesas. So, but that's another story, and that will be another video presentation. I do want to talk about the giants in a presentation, and make a connection with giants and the artificial satellite that we called our moon. I think that is the work of giants. Indeed, I believe there are giants that man that artificial satellite. It's actually a spaceship. It's been parked there for a while, keeping an eye on things. We are kind of like a zoo exhibit, I think, to these beings, and they kind of maybe are watching us just like we watch little Sims run around in Sim City, for example. So anyway, I'll do a talk about race in another presentation. For those of you who are Christians, just remember that it isn't complete, it isn't perfect, and it has been designed to divide you by and large. If you take a look at Christianity as a whole, there are thousands of individual different sects in Christianity, which has created division rather than a harmonizing. And now more than ever, white people, you need to organize and harmonize and stop squabbling over dogma, over issues that are really of no consequence. What is important is that you recognize the fact that you are a child of God, and there is no one over you but God. You are a sovereign being, and you can talk to God directly. You don't need Joel Osteen. You don't need, some preacher, some minister, some individual with a fancy robe and an unusual hat. You have a direct line, and my suggestion is clear your pineal gland as best you can. Stop drinking fluoridated water and try to avoid that as much as possible, and realize that turning the other cheek and accepting nonsense, malfeasance, criminal behavior, the kind of things that the Jew is particularly adept at, that has to be not tolerated. You cannot tolerate that. That idea of turning the other cheek isn't about tolerating evil. And turn the other cheek. If Buddy is going to strike that cheek, you've got the cheek turned now, and so you can wind up with this fist here and pile drive him pretty good. And that's really what you should be doing. Don't be just backing down and putting your tail between your legs. You got to be a warrior. Your Father in heaven can't win the battle here against the enemy if you are all wimpy, spineless jellyfish. Look at how in some places these little commie creeps with their bandanas and masks on, these little Antifa thugs, and there's these burn, loot, murder groups, all led by these hook-nosed tentacles of the international parasite. They're the ones that are out there shouting and leading the charge. Well, it's time to stop being tolerant, and it is time to learn how to make some special knots, which I will show you in an upcoming episode. So, as soon as I get the right kind of rope to show you what needs to be done. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at this for now. I just wanted to catch up. I noticed that others are posting like crazy, and that's a good thing. We got to keep hammering the information and wake people up. So if you do like what I'm doing, if you like these presentations, just make sure you share them and encourage people to subscribe, because now that I'm figuring this out a little bit more, I do intend to make more regular presentations and share my 2 bits worth, and hopefully it adds something to the total picture, and maybe we can affect the changes necessary to let's say undo the yoke and get back to real normal, the furthering development of our paradise on earth. So thanks again for watching, and this is Gertjan Zwigler signing off.